Hey everybody, it's Judith Jameson, Love Coach. I am here with Makeup or Breakup, my favorite show, and Lou, my good friend and producer. And actually, let's be honest, you're my wingman. You're like my co-host here.
Trying as best I can.
Yep, you're like the that it guy. And we are going to be talking about finances today. And the reason why we talk about finances is during a makeup or breakup, we are looking at our bank accounts, we are looking at our expenses, we are looking at our lifestyle, we are looking at our car payments. Should I renew that car payment, or maybe I should just, go get a, clunker for a couple of years? When people are teetering on their relationship and they don't know if they're going to make up or break up, especially if they're in a separation mode, they're in that gray area of this may work, this may not work. I may have my budget that I'm used to in the over the next 2 weeks or the next 5 years, or I may not. My budget may come or go. And a big part of our budgets, unfortunately, is our rent and our mortgage. And sometimes people have to have that reality check where they say, will I have the money? Will I have the, will I have child support or alimony? Do I need to go back to work? But at the end of the day, if it does end up moving forward into a long-term separation or divorce, or a breakup where two people owned a house together, there are a lot of moving parts. And behind the scenes is the emotions.
Right.
And what is keeping us tethered to that thing that sucks our bank account dry every month, which is called a mortgage payment. But there's all those other moving parts too, where you have to think about your taxes, your water bill, God forbid your roof caves in, the toilet breaks and I need a new toilet. I mean, toilets are pretty cheap, but the plumber isn't.
Right.
I should have been a plumber. Lou, they make pretty good money. I'm not going to lie.
They make damn good money, and there's a shortage of them too. So send your kids into plumbing if you have to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I thought it would be a really great idea today, given the topic that we cover every week. And we're typically talking about long-term relationships or marriages. And I thought it would be a great idea to have my friend Amanda come in because she's a realtor and she's also been through divorce. So we're going to talk a little bit about all of that with her. And as a realtor who specializes in this area of helping men and women go through this uncoupling process, she can give us some tips and tricks and pitfalls that people tend to get into. And so in some ways, your realtor can be like a therapist if it's the right realtor, if they have the right mindset, that they actually care about their clients and they want to help them go through this process as smoothly as possible. So I think we should bring our guest in, Amanda Reichert. She's from Nashua, New Hampshire. Hey, Amanda.
Good morning, Judith. How are you today?
I'm great. It's so good to have you on here. I really appreciate having you come in and spend some time with us because this is a tough topic.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And I really think that it is really an important topic and one that so often people don't really give enough consideration to. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So to start with, why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where you live, a little bit of information about your business, and then how you got into the specialty of really working with men and women who are trying to process through this difficult time when they may or may not be selling a house.
Sure, I would be happy to. So my name is Amanda Reichert, and I am a full-time realtor. I work full-time in the career as a realtor. It's my business. I work under Allison James Estates and Homes, and I'm licensed in New Hampshire and in Massachusetts. And my home base is Nashua. So, and I cover about an hour in any direction. So really, north of Boston, out to probably around Portsmouth and a little bit west and about the same north in New Hampshire. The reason why, I've been in real estate for a little over 4 years. I love what I do. I love helping people. I love helping happy people. But I went through my own divorce in 2009 after being married for 14 years. And I have two children. They are now grown. My son is 24. My daughter is 20, and she's in college. After many years of co-parenting with my ex-husband, and it was very stressful to co-parent under certain conditions. I really realized that, you know what, if I'm still going through this after all these years, and at that point it was around 10 or 11 years, um, I knew, you know, of being divorced. I quickly realized that other people were going through it too.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to be able to help people. Um, and the first thing I did was I formed a support group where I bring in professionals. It's called the Divorce Connection, and it can be found at thedivorceconnection.net. Um, but then I went out and I got educated on how to help divorcing or separating homeowners to be able to get through that process. And where I became the expert because the home is often the largest asset that two people share.
Mhm.
And it's also the most emotionally draining of most assets. Because if people have gotten married or they built the home or they bought the home with the hopes of owning it for a long time, raising their children there or their families there, you know, and then all of a sudden they find themselves in a situation where the house has to be sold or difficult decisions have to be made regarding the house, whether they keep it or sell it. Um, it still is very difficult. It's very emotional. And so that's where I come in.
Mhm.
Um, and I've been trained
Mhm.
very,
Yeah.
really trained
Lou,
to,
do you have a question? I know Lou's, I can tell Lou's like, wait,
yeah.
I'm curious about which way you push this, Amanda, because oftentimes the sale of the house and the divorce or separation comes in the most emotional time, and there's a lot of pride involved, and there's a lot of emotional damage and debris going on. But the house sale has to be taken as a business venture. So, do you push people more towards turning it into a business proposition, or just accepting the emotions of it, or is that a case by case basis?
So I am really glad that you asked
Mhm.
that question because number one, I don't ever push anyone to do anything.
Yeah.
It has to be a decision that comes from within the household, and they need to know they need to know the risk. You know, they need to know what they're getting, know the risk, and they need to understand what they're getting stuck with. So I have a consultation. The best is with both homeowners. Oftentimes, that's not possible if the divorce is litigated.
Mhm.
But if it's being mediated, if I'm able to sit down with both homeowners and have a conversation with them about what are your plans? What do you want to do with the house? And one example of that is it was several years ago where I sat down with a couple and the wife wanted the house sold and the husband just was adamant. He says, you know, we built this house, I want to keep this house. You know, I'm never going to have a house like this again. And I said, well, you know, this is a decision that you have to make. If you want to keep the house, I certainly would never push you to sell it. It's not about me, it's about them. It's
Mhm.
about their future, their lives, it's about their finances. And so I said, you know, if you want to keep the house, here's the name of a lender or two lenders that I work with on a regular basis. They're very savvy in helping my divorcing homeowners. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday night. Give him a call. And he said, you know, the husband says, it's 5 o'clock on a Friday night. He's
Mhm.
not going to take my call. And I said, I promise you, he will take your call. And you will know in an hour whether you can afford to keep the house or not. That's really the number one question is, you know, whether people want to keep the house. That's great. If they want to keep it, who doesn't want to keep their home, the home that they've raised their family in, the home, you know, nobody wants to move. But the biggest question is, can they afford to keep it? And
Mhm.
so, you know, very quickly it was determined that he was not able to afford to keep the house because of other financial obligations. And so, what that does is it takes the house off the table because
Mhm.
now they know, both of them know where the financial position is, and they're able to move past to keep, you know, whether they keep the house or sell it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. And the other thing is, it's interesting to me how many people think that they can afford to keep their house, but they forget the fact that there may be child support coming, or there may be, there's just so many different moving parts. And the other thing that can affect everything is their credit score. So your credit score does affect the rate that you get. And it's funny because my husband is a loan officer, and every time I go downstairs, like, let's be honest, since the middle of last March, I go downstairs, get my cup of coffee, and come back upstairs. And during that time, I always hear him talking about credit scores. And he's like, the credit score matters. It can take you from a quarter of a point to a half a point, or God forbid, if it's so low, under a certain point, like, the low 600s, you're not getting a loan.
You
So
certainly, again, make a very valid point. You absolutely do. And one of the number one things when I sit down with people is we go through very difficult questions.
Mhm.
Is your mortgage current?
Right.
Right? That's a
Right.
really important one.
Yeah.
Has your home been put into forbearance? If the house was bought prior to 2004, 5, 6, 7, and 8, did you modify your mortgage during that 2000, after 2008? Because the worst thing that could happen is someone, they work through all the details, and then they sell the house. They get to the part where the payoff is ordered, and they find out that they aren't getting $100,000 in equity. Closing, they're getting 13, right? Because there were all these fees and penalties and so forth that have been added onto the back of the loan because they modified their loan.
Yeah. It
So
happens.
there are a lot of challenges and pitfalls that
Mhm.
I work through on the front end with them, or at least I get them thinking about it, and I leave them with what I call house homework. And it's a list of things that I want them to look into to make sure that, if there are any questions or concerns or anything that's open-ended, that we can close the loop on that so that they don't get to the closing table and find out, or 2 or 3 days before closing and find out that they have to bring money to the table, or that they're only getting $13,000, and by then they may be under contract for something else to purchase, and
Yeah.
the 50,000 they were getting is no longer there. So
Mhm. Mhm.
it's very important that you have a realtor like myself who has been trained and is educated and can talk you through the challenges and the pitfalls. Um, because the last thing you want to do is to get that close to the finish line and have things fall apart, and
Mm.
have your finances be really falling apart too.
Yeah. So what do you do when you have a couple who's going through a divorce? I do see this more and more often because of finances. They're going through a divorce, it's ugly, and they're living in the house together until the house sells, and, through this whole process. Because I have several clients right now that are in that. And it's hard because one person isn't really doing much, and the other one, who's not as much maybe as an emotional train wreck, is trying to get things ready. So how
Mhm.
do you manage that with a couple that's going through that?
Yep. So I've seen both sides of that where, where one spouse is in, one spouse is out, or both spouses are in the house, but one spouse doesn't really want to do much, if
Mhm.
anything. Oftentimes, houses that are in the midst of divorce,
Mhm.
there's deferred maintenance. And that's a conversation that I have with my homeowners when I sit down with them. Is I walk through the house, we talk about we talk about the maintenance, we talk about the yard, we talk about, if there's a pool, we talk about just, you name it, the cleanliness. We talk about, if there are animal smells or smoke smells. We talk about all of those things. And, I really just kind of lay it out for them. If you can take care of these things, it's going to increase your return by probably X amount. Whereas if you don't, and people come in and they see all this deferred maintenance,
Mhm.
you really have you're at a risk of a much greater loss than just by maybe investing a couple $1,000s. to put fresh paint on the walls or to have someone come in and professionally clean and declutter and just start really hauling stuff out. So we have those conversations, and it really does go both ways. One of the things that I do see often is if say and I'm just going to use just a general, right? If the husband is out of the house and the wife is in the house, very often I see the wives that just will wait and wait and wait, and they won't start packing, they won't start doing decluttering, they won't start doing anything until the very, very, very last, probably about the last week. And it is very stressful for them. It's very stressful for everyone. And it a lot of times comes down to emotion. It's denial. It's resistance to the change.
Right.
And quite frankly, they're pissed off that they have husbands that are out and they have the easy way out because, and I'm just, again, using this as generalization, right?
Yeah.
But they're mad that they're stuck dealing with everything under that roof, and the out spouse has it easy because they packed up the few belongings that they wanted to take with them and they've moved on with their life. But then you have this other person that's there and they're dealing with everything under that roof.
Right.
Oftentimes people have been in a house together for 20, 25 years. There's a lot of stuff that has to be dealt with. And
I'm also curious about this, Amanda. What is the financial difference between selling a house that is empty and staged and a house that is currently being lived in?
So if a house is lived in and it's maintained and it's in good condition, it can be staged. So it really, and that goes a real long way with the perception. It goes a real long way with buyers coming in and really being able to envision themselves living there versus having a house that is just full of stuff that's, 25 years of clutter and even vacant for that matter. I think vacant is probably better than all the stuff and piles of things and just, a lot of stuff everywhere.
Wow. Okay. That's great. I didn't know that. I was, better than things everywhere. But in general, is it better to keep furnishings in the house or to have it empty?
It is definitely better to have furnishings in the house. And one of the things that I do is I walk through with them, we talk pre-listing about what they need to do to prepare the house to get it listed. And then a couple of days before the photographer is scheduled to come, I again will walk through with them. If they need help moving furniture, staging the house, I will help them with that. I've gone through and I've got a designation in staging as well. And so I help them to do that, make sure that flows, the house flows and the furniture is, if big pieces, we might need to move some things into the basement or the garage or somewhere just kind of out of the way. But I definitely do go through that. And then when the photographer comes, I walk through the house and I ask the homeowners to not be there. And I will stick things in the microwave and the oven. Just make sure everything is clean and clear. And I'll straighten beds and make sure sheets aren't hanging out. Because I feel like I have a financial responsibility to my homeowners to present their home in the best light. And those are just things that people don't think about. But when people see that in pictures, once the listing goes live, it really does make a difference.
Yeah, it's so distracting. It's funny that you said that. So you have someone that, they're trying their best to get through this emotional upset, and maybe it wasn't even their idea to get the divorce. So you've got that on top of it. You've got someone that isn't just in normal distress. They're feeling these these feelings of anxiety and, a lot of unknown. When I look at listings, it's so interesting that you said that, because it fascinates me that a realtor would go in there with a photographer. And I just saw one the other day. For me, because I'm looking through the pictures, I'm the one that wants to see the 32 pictures. And I'm like, well, first of all, there's like the listing that only has 5 pictures. I'm like, where's your bathroom? Just seeing your kitchen 5 different ways isn't exactly that interesting. And also, you do see a difference. Like, I like the look of being able to see the counters, even though I know when I move in, There's going to be the utensil holder and the pepper grinder and the coffee maker and the espresso machine and the milk frother. But I'm very attracted to houses that are tidy. And I just saw a listing, which is why it's hilarious that you said this. I just saw a listing and I'm like, I know it's not your job. You're the realtor. But I'm thinking to myself, I cannot believe that this realtor who works for a very high-end company in a very affluent suburb of Boston, like, what were you thinking when you took a picture? Like, all you had to do, like you said, was neaten up a bed. But like, and then there was like some weird thing in the middle of the bedroom. I forget what it was. It's almost like somebody said, "I'm not moving everything. This is ridiculous." And the realtor got there and said, "I don't have time for this. I'm not doing a darn thing." And I'm like, that bedroom, to my brain, I'm still remembering what it looked like. And I'm like, doesn't make me want to go see that house.
I see it all the time. And, just in addition to that, having professional photos really goes a long way.
Right.
It's a small expense that, I'm being paid to market the home.
Yeah.
And I have a fiscal responsibility to my homeowners to get the most amount of money for them and to present their home in the best possible way. So, it's a differentiator. It really sets me apart from other agents who aren't doing that for their clients.
Yeah. What happens if this is the best? Lou's going to be like, "Oh my God, that sounds terrible," but it happens. So when people are postponing things and they're procrastinating, and what do you do when it's like the day before the closing and like these people haven't even packed stuff, never mind, like, forget the, clean sweep the day of? What do you do about that? Like, do you just jump into action and do things because I feel like you would do things that other realtors wouldn't do. They'd be like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it has happened. There was, fortunately, it hasn't happened too much.
Okay.
But when it does happen, I have someone that can do junk, that's someone on my phone, someone that can do junk removal at the drop of a dime. A cleaning service that can come in and just tidy things up. I had a client not terribly long ago who waited and waited and waited. And again, I think it was just really denial. And I think that it's a sad situation when people are going through this. And the day before closing, my husband and I went over because I had been there 2 days before, and I saw there was no way possible that this homeowner was going to be out of the house by closing. There's just no way. The closing was at 10 o'clock on a Friday morning, and there was not a chance. And so I said, well, my husband and I will come over. We brought our son's truck, and my husband made dump run after dump run after dump run. And I was in the house and I was helping her to pack and just get things. She had a moving company there, so that was really a blessing. But there was still closets that hadn't been packed, and just a lot. The whole basement, the garage, shelves and shelves of stuff. And so, between her, my husband, and me, we got the house cleaned out. And but boy, it was hard. It was a lot in the middle of a snowstorm.
Oh no. Lou and I are like having like hives just hearing these stories, but I feel like it's more common than not. People are just under such emotional distress during this particular time. And you could even add the fact that someone might have several kids, and you're there and the other spouse isn't. And so you're parenting and feeding and clothing. And maybe right now during the pandemic, you're even homeschooling, and now you have to pack.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a very real, that is a very real situation, and not one to be taken lightly. And when I start talking with people, I often will meet with them 2 or 3 months before they're even ready to list the house. And that's when I will walk through. We talk about pricing if we were to list it today. And we go through and I work with them to make a list of everything that needs to be done to prepare the house to be sold. And I really try to emphasize, this is not an easy process. It isn't fast. And you've got to really start packing and decluttering your house now, because you just are not going to be able to do this 1 week before.
Mhm.
Your house didn't fill up in 5 days. You're not going to be able to clear it out in 5 days when you've lived here for 25 years.
Right. Lou, you didn't have to go through that because your wife kept the house and you
Yeah.
left.
Yeah. I left. So I didn't have to go through that, but I was just thinking as Amanda was talking about that, when I bought my most recent house, the buying end of it seemed overwhelming at times. I can't imagine being the seller and having to get out after a divorce, especially. This is going to sound sexist. I don't mean it that way, but the mother's in the house with the two kids and the husband is out and doesn't have that help to clean out that household that's been accumulating stuff for years. At this point, it must be a tremendously overwhelming situation for them, especially where it's usually so close to the divorce and the separation. There's still a lot of emotion involved. It's got to be overwhelming in many cases.
It really is. And often there is mental illness, there's substance or alcohol abuse.
There could be that.
I mean, if there's domestic violence, there might be a DV order, and the spouse that's out isn't even able to come to the house. Oftentimes, there are furnishings that are still left there up until the very last minute because the spouse that's out isn't allowed to come in. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, and it really takes a lot to coordinate that. I work with the attorneys, I work with mediators.
I wanted to get into this. You're speaking about moving parts, and I want you to talk about your specialization in divorced and separated couples in terms of sales, because at a minimum, you have two sellers that aren't necessarily working together all that greatly. They have attorneys behind them. They might likely have the bank behind that or a court order behind that. It's got to be an incredibly complex process. So it's like for you, it's having 5 or 6 times the clients in some cases.
That's exactly right. It really, very often. So just to kind of back up a little bit, I am a divorce real estate expert, and I also have a designation as a collaborative specialist. So I have been really specifically trained in the legal process of home sales during divorce. So very often I'm working with attorneys on both sides, and then I'm working with both of the parties potentially. If sometimes there's a court order, if there's mental illness or substance abuse, the courts may assign what's called a real estate. Basically a real
advocate or
commissioner, right? An advocate or a real estate in the state of New Hampshire, they call it a real estate commissioner, who is, acts as the signer for a spouse that may not be able to sign on their own behalf, or if the divorce is so contentious where the parties can't agree on anything, the courts may assign a real estate commissioner to actually make decisions on behalf of the spouse that just will not budge and won't work with the other party or with the realtor in that case. If there's a court order, I always ask for a copy of the court order so that I can read all of the details so that I know who the parties are and what the terms of listing the house are, the dates that there's always, a date that drives that.
Sure.
And occasionally I will have to testify as an expert witness if one party or the other won't cooperate. Say, for example, the spouse that's in the house still, if they won't allow showings, I keep, meticulous documented records of that. And occasionally I will have to either write a letter or testify in court that particular spouse is just not cooperating with the sale of the home.
So at that point where you have this significant lack of cooperation, one just won't facilitate the sale, for example. Does this get back into a contempt of court type situation? Are there court proceedings that will adjudicate this, or do they usually put someone in charge that will, in a sense, mediate it outside of the court?
Yes, all of those things.
Yeah.
Absolutely, all of those things. That's where the real estate commissioner comes in, that gets assigned to the party that won't cooperate. The attorneys will certainly file contempt of court. Occasionally, there's what's called an ex parte that may be filed, and that is, it's an order where it bypasses the party that won't cooperate and goes straight to the court. So yes, there are lots of ways that that this can be navigated. They're not fast and they're not expensive. They're not cheap. So when you have people that don't really want to participate or cooperate, you're in it for the long haul, and the cost can be very great to both parties.
I'm curious about the marketing of the house at that point, because as a seller, as a buyer, I might be leery to get involved in that type of situation. Is that something that needs to be disclosed, or does it come up and if I'm imagining if there's no conflict, it doesn't come up, but if there's conflict, how does the buyer get involved in this?
So if there's conflict, like what we've talked about, and there's a buyer that's involved, I am bound to confidentiality. So, I cannot disclose to any party that, oh, this is a divorce and we have one party that won't cooperate. Basically, you just have to say, we're going through a process. We're working with both homeowners to get cooperation and get agreement and get the offers reviewed and signed off on. Oftentimes the attorneys even want to review the offers before one spouse will sign off on it. So I'm communicating with 4 different parties. So yes, it can be very complicated. And, in times like right now, where we have a very, very hot, tight real estate market, buyers are more willing to hang on if they know that they have an offer that is willing to potentially be accepted. But boy, when we have a soft market for sellers and it's more of a buyer's market, it's just, the house could end up going into foreclosure.
Right. So with your divorce, did you have to sell your house when you got divorced?
I was actually pretty fortunate. I had relocated from Florida to New Hampshire, and my ex-husband and I were renting because we weren't sure how long we were going to be here for. We moved in 2003. The market was crazy. We weren't really ready to make a commitment like that. So we got pretty fortunate that, because we would have been buying in 2003, 2004, which is really at the top of the market. And we would have been selling in 2008, 2009, when things were really just starting to tank in the market. And we would have really had an upside down situation. So we were very fortunate that we had not purchased a home.
Yeah. And I always advise with my clients, and also in the support group that I run, I always advise people, best practice is after you sell the house and you're going through divorce, unless money is no object and you're, in that 1% of people that don't have to worry about money. I tell people to rent an apartment, rent a condo. You may think you want to stay in Nashua, for example, but maybe a year from now, you're going to wish you didn't buy a house in Nashua because your life changed. And now you took a job, south of Boston, and you're commuting from Nashua. So
it's true. And, when people become single, they meet people, they may fall in love again. And, they may end up buying a home together, or one person moves in with the other person. Like there's a lot of change that's happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I think it really is very smart to rent when you're going through that, and instead of just jumping right into a purchase. Absolutely.
Just to sort of take their time and whatnot. But I think we're coming up to the top of our time here, but I'm so excited that you came on, and I want to have you back on again because this is a serious topic, and it's people's money, it's their real estate, it's often their only significant asset. And like you said, it makes the world of difference on how you stage it and the realtor that you work with. The realtor can make the difference of, don't worry about it. People don't care if it looks like this. We'll just snap a few pictures and off we go. But it could be costing them thousands of dollars to take that approach, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm laughing because when I met Judith, I didn't know a divorce coach existed. And then we went through the process and some of the services she provides, and having gone through it, I said to myself, everybody needs this. And I didn't know that there were specialists in real estate for selling houses of divorced couples. But talking about the complexity, we talked about it. Every divorced couple needs this. It's such a different animal from a normal house sale that this is a tremendous benefit. Now, I didn't know people like you existed, but now that I know, it's like, of course, why would you not use this type of stuff?
Yeah, and most people know a realtor. Most everybody knows a realtor,
Right.
and some even have family members who are realtors, and they want to pull their family or their friend in to sell the house. Well, I work as a neutral third party. I am impartial to the circumstances surrounding the divorce, and that really, really, really matters. Because if you have a family member, a sister, a brother, a mother, a father, a friend, what have you, who is brought in to sell the house, they of course are going to show partiality to the person that they are taking sides with. And I come in, it doesn't matter to me why they're divorcing. I am not judging them on why they're divorcing. I'm there for the purpose of protecting their asset, getting them the most amount of money, and getting the house sold in a time frame so that it works for everyone.
Plus, forgive me if I'm overgeneralizing this, but real estate agents in general, they want to turn over houses. They want to sell houses. And the complexity of a divorce situation, that takes a lot of extra work. It takes a lot of extra hand-holding. It takes a bigger team. It takes you being able to coordinate with people that can help resolve the conflict and get the house sale done. And a lot of real estate agents either aren't going to take that on at all, or they're going to they won't prioritize that particular sale because it's more hassle than a normal house sale.
Absolutely. And the majority of divorcing homeowners never make it to the closing table when it is a highly contested divorce, because the realtor that they have hired has no idea how to get them there. They only know how to list the house. They have no idea how to overcome all of the obstacles and the legal matters that pertain to the sale of that home.
Right. Well, and the other thing that we're talking about too is the added benefit, I think, as Lou was saying, we're not just a realtor and a divorce coach. I'm a relationship coach, but we actually lived through it. So for myself, I bring my personal expertise. I run support groups literally every week of the year. And then I have special programs that I run during the holidays because that's its own topic. And those are add-ons. I went through a divorce. You went through a divorce. That makes us a little smarter, and Lou as well, regarding this topic. That makes us a little smarter regarding the stress and the emotional aspects and all the different moving targets. And that's why I also am sort of anti-therapist in general, when it comes to divorce. Therapy is talk therapy. And when someone's going through separation and divorce, there's going to be some levels of pain somewhere along the line. And if your realtor doesn't really get it because they've never really witnessed it firsthand, or I'm a therapist or a coach and I've never really had to be up at night because I've got this great husband or wife and my life's just peachy, I'm working off of textbook. I'm not working by personal experience. Like you and I know what it's like to be worried at night. You and I know what it's like to lose sleep. You and I know what it's like to wake up at 2 a.m, even though we just fell asleep at 1 a.m. If you don't understand those moving parts that are like behind the facade of the person that you're representing, you can't really work with them in the most beneficial way that takes care of them in all different areas.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And really understanding and empathizing with the family, right?
Right.
So, so often the sign goes in the yard, and maybe the parent hasn't even had a conversation with the children that the house is being sold.
Right.
And the parent goes to pick the kids up from school. They come around the corner and the sign has been installed, and the kids didn't even know that it was happening. I have conversations throughout the entire process with my homeowners about, okay, I plan to have the sign installed tomorrow. How does that sound? And, I walk them through every single step of the process to make sure that things like that don't happen. Because I'm very, very sensitive to the emotional needs of the parties and their children, their families, because it is very, very emotional for everyone.
Yeah. Well, this is so cool. I am so glad that that we met and that you were able to come on the show. And I think there's just so much information that people don't understand. And when they don't have someone that has the compassion, and you can be sympathetic about things, but the definition of sympathy and empathy is very different. And empathy only comes from experiential background. So you can't really be empathetic if you haven't gone through that kind of a situation before. But Amanda, this is so cool. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much. I've really had a great time, and just being able to chat with you today. And Lou, thanks for the great questions. And I would love to come back anytime.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, we look forward to that. And so we'll talk to you maybe in the summertime so we can talk about how the market may or may not have changed and how people can, think about that. And we'll continue talking about, obviously, people going through the separation process, since the name of the show is Make Up or Break Up.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Amanda, for coming on. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. I will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, God, that was awesome.
I know.
I was going through the same process I went through with you when we first met. It's like, God, why haven't I heard of this type of thing before? Because it's so needed.
Right. Well, I remember you and I got together for drinks a couple of times, and you're like, wait, what do you do? This is so interesting. And then when you would share something with me, I'm like, yeah, I get it. This is normal, or this is what people do with that, or this is how it normally works out. And yeah, it's a specialty.
And we talked about people trying to do marriage therapy or relationship therapy or recovery therapy through their lawyer at $350 an hour, which is not the way to do it.
Yeah.
And what a big need this was. And with real estate, a standard real estate agent, and I'm not knocking standard real estate agents. There are some great ones, of course, but I'm guessing either they don't know how to deal with these types of situations, or if they do, they're less willing to deal with these type of situations than someone who specializes in it.
Well, yeah. So that's the other thing too. I didn't get into it when Amanda was here, but I have a deep knowledge of real estate for a lot of different reasons, but not the least of which is my mom was a realtor for about 60 years. And so I grew up with a realtor, coming and going to open houses, doing deals at night from the kitchen phone, from the kitchen counter. And I also witnessed her having to deal with how to keep the house during her own divorce when I was at the end of my high school years.
Yeah.
So before I ever got into this or ever thought I'd ever want anything to do with marriage or dating or any of that, I was having firsthand training with what my mom went through. And I can tell you right now, based on everything that I know and saw with her experiences in the Concord, Carlisle, Lexington areas, where she was a very active realtor, like I said, for 55 or 60 years. She's almost 90 now. She won't like it that I rounded up, but okay. She's almost 89. I'm going to round it up to 90. But she's still one of the smartest realtors I know out there. She can walk into a place and immediately say, kind of like what Amanda does, this goes, move that over there. Don't do this, don't do that. Paint that, don't worry with that. She's just an expert with that. But I have to say, one of the things that I learned early on, and I can say this as an adult too, with people that I've come in contact with who were realtors, is maybe it's not as much now, but throughout my life and throughout my mom's real estate brokerage years, it was a known fact. And my husband will say the same, because he used to be a realtor And then he became a loan officer 15 years ago. So my husband has deep, deep knowledge of not just the real estate transactions and the real estate market in the Boston area and the suburbs, but also the lending industry. And all of us have concluded that in general, there are more realtors who are just filling up time and trying to do something. It's not their full-time job.
Right.
They're not deeply invested in it. They don't like taking CEUs and having to take classes every year or getting recertified because they think it's a pain in the butt, because all they're going to do is show up. Oh, I hope I get to show a house, for a couple of hours on a Saturday.
Right.
There's some realtors that only want to do open houses. Like, well, I'm just going to sit here for 3 hours and have my free Snicker bars and my free waters and my opinion of a really successful open house. Like, no. So what Amanda is really doing is she's not just tackling a specialty, which it is, but she's also marketing herself as a smart, strategic realtor who takes it seriously. It is her job. She's not she's not a yummy mummy who's trying to do something with her extra time for 4 hours a week, which the majority of realtors I've met in the Lexington Concord area, it's an affluent area where women are just trying to fill a little time on top of their tennis hours. I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, but I lived there, so I know it's true.
But as we pointed out, this experience, both professionally and personally with divorce in terms of real estate, is so important because, listen, every realtor has to deal with a husband and wife that can't agree on a sales price. And that's one thing, but it's another thing altogether when the husband doesn't want to sell and the wife does. And, and the one side is just not cooperating with the sale at all. And you have to deal with a couple of different lawyers, and you have to deal with the court, and you have to deal with the state, and you have to deal with the bank. Having that personal experience. And again, like she talked about, very important thing, talk to the kids before the for sale sign goes up, for God's sake.
Right.
But
people don't. Like, all of a sudden the kids come home and it's like little Billy's room is super clean and his toys aren't to be found.
Yeah. And to your point,
toys.
And to your point, someone who's never been through a divorce, a young real estate agent who's never been through a divorce, isn't going to be thinking about these things, isn't going to have that personal experience behind them, certainly not going to understand the intricacies of a divorced couple or a separated couple going through a house sale, the legal intricacies of it. You have some understanding of that, both the emotional and legal aspects of it.
Yeah.
It's just so important. It's such a big advantage having someone who's familiar with it, and someone who's familiar with the divorce process and having gone through a divorce and being a specialist in it. Again, before last night, didn't know this existed. And it's like, why would anyone do anything different than a specialist?
Right. And that's the whole point, Lou. Like, why would you do something other than a specialist? You know what I'm saying? There's a place for certain type of realtors. Like, some realtors might be good at staging, but that doesn't mean that they're giving the right advice to get this couple the most money. Because honestly, an average person, everybody could use an extra $20,000, but especially people who are splitting assets. Two people are now going to split the $40,000. If they could each make $50,000 instead of $40,000, it's win-win. You just got your client. You just got these two people each an extra $10,000.
Yep.
So there are a lot of realtors out there that only focus on listings. It's like, I want a list, I want a list, I want a list. Because a broker that only wants to list, that's all they're going to do. And they know that the house will sell, but it doesn't have to be them that sells it.
Right.
And they're going to get a commission just because they listed it. So there are many realtors that just take that attitude, and that's how they approach it. And I've always said that's wrong. You need to be looking at this strategically. You need to be looking at it holistically, sort of like what I do. Like I'm working with people's emotions. That's a big part of what I do, because I have to move them. I'm a coach. So I'm moving them from step to step. I have to create a strategy. I have to create a plan. To create 2 or 3 plans. And then we talk about each plan and why are you going to choose this one? And here's what's going to happen at the top of the road. If you choose this one, that's, maybe not the best choice. And I'm going to tell you why.
But think about the divorced couple as well, where you're going into a sale where one person doesn't want it or isn't going to be cooperative for whatever reason. There's a lot of pride involved, a lot of emotion involved, and you're going to be dealing with a real estate who doesn't deal with this normally. And they say, how do I get this person to cooperate with this? And that real estate agent doesn't have any background in it, doesn't understand. They're just there to to show the house, basically. So having someone who has resources, who has experience, who has ways to get things done and bring couples together and get it done, even for the divorced couple, that's such a boon, especially the person who's pro selling the house. And I'm guessing there's a mismatch there in almost all divorce cases, how enthusiastic someone is about selling the house. I'm sure one's always more enthusiastic than the other about it. You know,
well, and
in terms of time and money, it's like someone might be, I just want to sell the house. We'll take less money. I just want to sell the house now. And then another person might be, I need the best price possible because I need the money.
Right. And it's very common during during the conflict of a divorce where two people aren't getting along and they have to sell a house. It's extremely common to have one person stalling just for the sake of not agreeing with the other person. So which realtor can take months?
Yep.
You know, Bob says, well, I want Amanda, and Jane says, well, I want Bill. And there's this huge, there's almost always in a contentious divorce with my clients, one of the big sticky points is which realtor are we going to use?
But in this instance, if someone wants Amanda, if they're smart and they want Amanda in this, and they can talk to Amanda and say, how do I get, you bring someone else in. She talks to lawyers, or they're talking about the proxies or the counselors that come from the states and stuff like that. Someone may say, you know, this divorce is so contentious, you need someone who knows how to deal with this.
Right. And you have to be able to identify these sticky points and be able to maneuver through them. And what you're basically saying is absolutely true, which is why I always promote myself when it comes to uncoupling. You know, even most coaches out there don't understand the intricacies of uncoupling because they themselves haven't gone through the various aspects of trauma. But I basically like to say, you name it, I've been through it. You know, I've experienced domestic violence, domestic abuse, domestic abuse, sexual assault, stealing, coercion, bankruptcy, like you name it, I've experienced it. And at this point in my life, it's either through myself, a family member, or a client. And so sometimes I've had more experience in some of those areas than even the attorneys that my clients are using.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so I'm always in education mode with the attorneys because a lot of them just don't get it. It's like, you don't know what it's like, to have had someone throw, pots and pans at you. You can picture it, it's traumatic, but you don't know what it feels like.
Yep.
And you don't know what PTSD is. And you don't know that that's what you're dealing with. And you don't know how to talk to them. So I'm always watching and maneuvering my attorneys in particular, because a lot of times they say things that trigger that trauma.
Yeah.
And I always say, you know what? Stupid is as stupid does. I'm like, you don't get 3 shots. 1 strike, you're out. And I'm there to protect my clients, not just physically and legally, but also emotionally. So, hey, that's what we do.
It's a good note to end on. Stupid is as stupid does.
That's right, Lou. So we're going to end. Thank you so much for tuning in today. As always, we ask everybody to keep binge watching all these videos and share this particular session. No, it's not session. What is it?
Episode.
This episode. Share it on Facebook so that your friends and family, and even your friends you never knew, can hear about this and be educated. That's the best thing you can do for the world, is share this segment. So be well, be healthy, and thanks for tuning in, everybody.